Tony Bellew is probably the worst virtue signaler in boxing. He's always at it, always getting up on his high horse and trying to show the world how morally upstanding he is, pointing the finger at this person and that person, and of course, most famously, calling for PED users to be banned for life. An immediate lifetime ban as soon as they're cool. And of course, his buddy Eddie Hearn joined in with all this stuff. But then a couple years down the line, Eddie Hearn actually starts to sign people that have failed PED tests. Luis Ortiz, he starts working with Alexander Povetkin. Dylan White, obviously, failed a test earlier on in his career. And there's just been more and more and more and more of them. And now, of course, Tony Bellew changes his tune. All of a sudden he's saying, well, we don't know all the facts yet, so we have to wait. And there is such a thing as contamination and so can happen and blah, blah, blah. Now he looks like an absolute wally. The same with Eddie Hearn. The guy who was saying PED cheats should be banned for life. Now he's saying, well, we don't know all the facts and the blah, blah. You see, this is what you typically get with habitual virtue signalers, in my experience. It's all fake. Their virtue is superficial. It's just a way of them trying to win social brownie points and be looked up to. Oh, wow, what a virtuous person. That's all it's about. It's about their ego, really. And for other people, it's about finding an excuse to vent their worldly frustrations on someone. And a witch hunt is a perfect opportunity. When there's somebody that's failed a PED test, they can pile on and they're not seen as being a bad person for attacking them. When their real motive isn't justice, their real motive is they just want to hurt someone. They just want someone to feel some of the pain that they feel in their lives. That's what it's about. It's usually got very little to do with having genuine care for the cause that they are ostensibly championing. And this is why, just as we've seen with Tony Bellew and Eddie Hearn, they turn out to be monumental hypocrites because their virtue was never genuine to start with. I say all that to talk about the reason I am not in favor of lifetime bans for PED users. Now, there are three main reasons. The first one is similar to why I oppose capital punishment, because mistakes are made. Innocent people do get sent down for things that they never did. But once they're dead and buried, you can't bring them back. And if that only happens to one person, it's one person too many as far as I'm concerned. Imagine the horror of being an innocent person condemned to the chair or whatever. Imagine the horror of that. Imagine the horror their families go through, knowing that their loved one is innocent, but they're being condemned in this way. It's unimaginable, right? On top of that, from an ideological perspective, I'm not in favor of the state having that much power over its citizens, playing God basically, deciding who lives and who dies. I don't agree with that, but that's just me. Now, obviously, lifetime bans for PED cheats are not the same as capital punishment, but because boxers have a very short window within which to make life-changing sums of money, if they were to get a lifetime ban, and then let's say 4, 5, 6, 7 years down the line, they prove their innocence, it's too late. Their prime years have passed them by. And then, of course, you're going to get legal cases, fighters suing for compensation, so on and so forth. It's going to get messy. So that's the first reason I'm not in favor of it. The second reason is that, to my knowledge, there is no proof that PED users in boxing put their opponents at increased risk of sustaining serious injury. There's no proof of that. It's an assumption that everybody makes, but where's the evidence for it? You get all these Tony Bellew types all outraged, saying that it's attempted red rum. I'm saying red rum rather than the word the other way around for the sake of the algorithm, right? They say it's attempted red rum. PED users should be put in prison, never mind just getting a ban from boxing. This is hyperbole. Why do I say this? Because PEDs have been in use in boxing for how many decades now? Look at the guys who have been caught for PEDs. Tyson Fury, Dylan White, Conor Benn, Alexander Povetkin, Shannon Briggs, Canelo Alvarez, Luis Ortiz, and on it goes. Now ask yourselves, how many of their opponents have lost their lives in the ring? 0. Now obviously, a PED user can absolutely seriously injure somebody in the ring, but so can non-PED users. People have been getting seriously injured in boxing rings since the very beginning of the sport, under the Marcus of Queensberry rules. And this brings me on to my next point. If you know anything about boxing, and you've witnessed these serious injuries happen over the decades, you will know that they normally occur in long drawn out fights where one guy has taken a sustained beating over many, many rounds. Now, PEDs are supposed to make a fighter stronger. They're supposed to make him more explosive, depending on the PEDs he's taken. More explosive, stronger, better endurance, and so on. And that, in theory, should allow him to hit harder, to throw more shots, be sharper, and actually get his opponents out of there earlier, rather than being in these long drawn-out fights. It's very rare for a fighter to sustain a serious injury in a short fight. Those of you who believe that Conor Benn is juiced up to the eyeballs, maybe he is. One of the bits of evidence that you guys have been pointing to, you can call it evidence, is the fact that Conor Benn went from going life and death with that French journeyman, and now he's knocking people out with one punch. Well, what's safer for the opponent? Getting knocked out early by Conor Benn, or having a less powerful Conor Benn hit them upside the head for 12 rounds? You see the point I'm making? And furthermore, here's what's really gonna fry your noodle. If PEDs allow the user to have increased endurance, and in some instances, be able to absorb more punches without falling to the floor, then perhaps it's actually the user who's in greater danger of sustaining a serious injury than the opponent who's clean. I'll give you an example of what I'm talking about. Roy Jones Jr. failed a PED test for apparently an over-the-counter substance called Ripped Fuel. And this substance, which was a pre-workout, was full of all types of crazy stuff. You guys can go look it up. The fact that something like that was being sold over the counter shows how wild the 1990s was. Okay, because it had all kind of crazy stuff in it. So he tested positive for this substance after his fight against Richard Hall. And I think his testosterone levels or something in his system was many, many times over the legal limit. Here's the catch. His opponent, Richard Hall, who he stopped in the 11th round, who sustained a terrible beating in the fight, was on it as well. He got caught with the same substance in his system. So the question is, would Richard Hall have taken such a terrible beating if he wasn't on that stuff? Would he have been able to stay in there for so many rounds? Would his endurance have been good enough to last that long? Now, Richard Hall didn't end up sustaining a serious injury, thankfully, but you get the point I'm making. It would have been better or safer for his health to actually get stopped early. But the substance in his system potentially made him abnormally resilient. So again, it could actually be the user who's in more danger of sustaining a serious injury rather than the clean opponent. And I'm not saying this definitely is the case. I'm just throwing possibilities out there. Because again, to my knowledge, there has been no comprehensive risk assessment done in boxing with regards to PEDs and how much more dangerous they make it for the opponent. There was one of these Tony Bellew, or more accurately, Greta Thunberg outrage types in the comments of one of my recent videos. You know, how dare you? Whenever I've spoken about PEDs in the past, I've had people say, I'm unsubscribing, oh my God, because I'm not doing the virtue signaling, emotionally driven hyperbole about PEDs that most other people seem to do. These drama queens are outraged by my logic-driven approach. Anyway, there was this one guy who was assuming that I'd never boxed because, according to him, if I had, I would have a much more hardline stance on PEDs. Well, of course, I have boxed, and the greater irony is that many top professional fighters have advocated for the legalization of PEDs in boxing, such as Tyson Fury. And no, he wasn't joking. I know the Fury fans get really upset and they go into mental meltdown when I bring this up. But Tyson Fury, a week before his fight with Klitschko, live on radio, was advocating the legalization of PEDs. And the rationale was the top guys are all taking them anyway, so we might as well legalize them to make it a level playing field. And he's not the only fighter that said this. Many, many other fighters over the years have come out and said similar. Yes, people who have boxed. Okay? Now, to be clear, I did a video about this a few months ago. I'm personally not in favor of PEDs being legalized in boxing. And if you want to know my reasons for it, then go check out my video on it. It's called Should PEDs Be Legalized in Boxing? That's the name of the video. Go check it out. But getting back to my reasons for not believing in lifetime bans for PED users. The final reason is selfishness. As a boxing fan, there are certain fighters who have tested positive over the years who I enjoy watching. So if they were to get banned for life after failing one test, I wouldn't be able to see them in the ring again. Imagine if Roy Jones Jr. had been banned for life when he got caught after his fight with Richard Hall. Would you have been happy with that? What about if Tyson Fury had been banned for life after his failed tests? Or Dylan White after his first failed test, which occurred early on in his career, long before he fought Anthony Joshua. He got a 2-year ban for that. Or how about if Canelo had been banned for life when he got caught? Would you guys have been happy with all that happening? Personally, I wouldn't have been. Now again, I obviously take into consideration the safety element. If it could be proven that PED users put their opponents in vastly greater danger of sustaining serious injury, then I would definitely have to reassess my position with regards to life bans for PED users. For sure. I'm not a psychopath, people, but nor am I a snowflake, and nor am I an idealist. I will add one caveat to my position. If someone has failed multiple tests, let's say 3 tests in their career, I'm much more open under those circumstances to a lifetime ban being imposed upon the person. So someone like Jarrell Miller would fall into that category. But for first-time offenders, no, I don't believe in lifetime bans for the reasons I've already outlined in this video. So anyway, I'll let all the Tony Bellews and Greta Thunbergs unleash their fake outrage in the comments, and I'll catch you on the next video. I'm out. Are you sick and tired of the mainstream mindset? Does the dogmatic conformity and pathological ignorance have you tearing your hair out in frustration? Then don't be alone. Come and join our brotherhood on Patreon. We stand as a beacon of reason against an army of insanity. You'll gain access to my weekly topical podcast, where we take more deep dives than Jacques Cousteau on an endless variety of subjects. There's also videos, interviews, live Q&As, as well as a vast back catalogue of previous episodes, including my popular Confessions of a Nightclub Bouncer series. You can listen via the Patreon app or download in high-quality MP3. Connect with myself and hundreds of other members in our Element chat group. There's no contract, no commitment, you can cancel at any time, and it's cheaper than a Mickey D's McMuffin. Just head to my Patreon page via the link below this video and select the tier called the Brotherhood of Reason. I'll see you over there.